Hello and welcome to the Power of the Truth podcast with me, Fran Willoughby. Today my conversation is with Charlotte Hodgkins-Byrne. She's a super inspirational Olympian, and when she was the keynote speaker at my son's prize day at college, immediately I knew that I needed to speak to her and have a deeper conversation. Having had a vocation, she knows what it means to be truly dedicated to something and work beyond hard to get to where she wanted to be. Not always through talent, might I add, but also through sheer bloody-mindedness and determination. So having been there myself, not quite in the same way that I got myself to be an Olympian, however, musical theatre is an incredibly competitive industry, and if you don't want the job, someone else always does. And so the nature of the business is similar, and everything she had to say really struck a chord with me. She's a real inspiration, and it's a really important conversation for young women to see other young women talk about failing and getting back up again. We've covered some really important issues, including body image and eating disorders and determination, what it's like to study a vocation. It's a really great conversation, and I hope you enjoy it. She's a complete sweetheart. So I hope you enjoy this episode with Charlotte Hodgkins-Byrne. Okay, welcome to the Power of the Truth podcast, Charlotte. So good to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so delighted to be here and so excited. I think you and I have quite similar thoughts and feelings around how people should express themselves and the values they should hold. So I'm really excited to be here.
So we met because I rather boldly messaged you on LinkedIn after you were the keynote speaker at my son's prize day at Hartpury College.
Yes.
And I watched you that day, and I was so impressed just with the way that you spoke about resilience and being an ex-professional dancer. Obviously, for me, it really struck a chord. And I just think more people need to hear what it's like to work in professional sport, work with a vocation specifically, and then what happens next after that. And I thought, I've got to get her on the podcast. So take me back to Hartpury College, because that's our joint bit of history. So that's tell us who you are, first of all. Tell us who you are.
Yes, 100%. So I am a former athlete. I spent the bulk of my time as a rower. I started, when did I start? Back in 2013, I think, is when I went to Hartpury first. Yes, and I started rowing a couple of years beforehand. And we'll get into it, but even though I was pretty bad when I started, I ended up being quite good. I went on to race at several world championships as a junior, under 23, picked up a few world championship titles, and then went on to race for Great Britain at the Tokyo Olympics. And then after that, I retired from rowing, but not from sport. I can't remember if I discussed this when I was at Hartpury, but I actually tried being a semi-pro cyclist for 2 years, which was awesome. I loved it. But I then kind of got to the end of those 2 years and realized I was pretty cooked. I think I give myself the comparison to when a greyhound's been spending the bulk of its life racing on a track, and then all it wants to do is just kind of not run all the time and just go for a nice walk. I think that's probably where I got to by the end of those 2 years. But yeah, so that was the bulk of my kind of journey up until a couple of years ago. It was very much just full-time sport and a huge part of my life, as I'm sure you found as well.
Yes. I know I saw your little exploit into cycling on your Instagram when I was having a little stalk when I was writing my questions. And it's interesting, isn't it, how when one big thing ends, especially something that creates that level of adrenaline and dopamine and endorphins in your body, how you're then looking or craving something that gives you the same high, because it is like that, isn't it?
100%. 100%. And I don't know if you found this actually, but for me it was a combination of that, but also just the structure and the routine and the steadiness and consistency it provides in your life that I really didn't realize at the time that I'd become so conditioned to love and really flourish under. And then you suddenly stop sport or whatever it is that's providing that structure, and it truly feels like you're just completely untethered. Particularly for myself, being pro athlete, you very fortunately have all this structure provided to you in the form of a team support training program. You're in one training center with everyone all the time, day in, day out. And then you're just kind of set out into the real world and you're like, oh God, I need this structure and this routine and this consistency and constantly striving towards achieving something. And I have no idea how to implement it myself because I have to now relearn that part, which was really hard, I think, for me at the start because I just didn't appreciate how important it was for me, even though it's something that I really spent so much time honing and getting right and obsessing over when I was at the start of my career, because it all just gets put in place by a team. You think you don't practice it and you're not used to having to do it all the time. So that really threw me, definitely.
So interesting, isn't it? How
Mm.
you don't realize you're being conditioned almost.
Yeah.
And not only that, is that possibly because of the way your brain works, because I do think certain types of people are drawn to these types of things because perhaps, I mean, I know if I decide I'm going to do something, there is a definite period of hyper focus where I can't think about anything else. And if I put my mind to something, I am doing it, you know.
Yep.
So anyway, talk to me about when you first started rowing. When was it first on your radar?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually have to fully admit I was a typical younger sister in that my older sister, 2 years older, Matilda, she'd already started rowing and she was instantly very good. And we're pretty much the same height, same build. And I think I just took a look at her and was like, well, if she seems to be doing that, I might as well give it a go as well. And so I followed her. I followed her to Hartpury. I started there in 2013, so I'd already been rowing a year or so beforehand. And unlike Tilda, I was terrible. She was really good, very naturally talented. I mean, she's also stubborn as anything and just an absolute weapon. But I absolutely sucked. I was really bad. And I remember on many occasions I would go to our coach, Tom Petitius. Luckily, we still get on. I don't think I drove him completely mad. I'd go to him and pester him and really try and convince him that I was good. I'm not quite sure why I believed I was so great, but I think I was just like, I think I can be good. You know, just help me and see the potential in me. And he kept kind of turning me away and saying I needed to progress more. I wasn't quite good enough. And when I went to Hartpury, we have two different training systems. You have the lower group and the kind of the training group, and then you have the academy, which you get all the facilities, you get huge amount of support, and it really is quite like, yeah, top tier. And I really, really wanted to get into the academy. I was not good enough at all. I was in development. And so I kept pestering him, kept training really, really hard. And eventually I did actually, just by sheer willpower and trying very hard, I did actually get into the academy squad, which was amazing. And I think it's like, especially as a young girl who was I'd say quite lost in terms of who I wanted to be and very unsure of myself at the time and a bit determined to find something that I could anchor myself to so I could feel more confident and more proud of what I was doing and be able to just really focus in on that. It was, I really think, looking back now, I think that was probably the most pivotal moment in not just with sport, but shaping me in who I've become and having access to all of those facilities and really being believed in and identifiably good at something was completely transformative for me at that point. And I think back to myself at that time and I'm like, I really want to just give that younger version of me a massive hug and be like, God, so hard that everything you were dealing with. And just everything was just such a relief when I was good enough and seen as just a good athlete. It was an amazing experience for me. Yeah, really, really looking back on it, like truly transformative.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because there was obviously something within you that wasn't prepared to fail in that moment. You decided, hadn't you? You were going, like I said to you earlier, there was definitely a moment where you were like, you are not going to pass over me here. I am going to succeed and I will make it to the academy. So there was a determination, and presumably, and your sister was ahead of you, was she?
Yeah.
Like 1 or 2 years?
2 years. Yeah.
2 years. And so you'd watched her fly through and wanted the same, basically. You wanted to have that same opportunity. And I mean, Hartpury is incredible, isn't it? I mean,
Amazing.
I don't know what it is that they do there that breeds such remarkable athletes other than perhaps mindset, facilities. It's just the whole package, isn't it? And clearly the fact that all these years on, you still know your coach's name and he's still very much in your, you know, that in itself, I think, is a really interesting point.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
know which teachers, which coaches had that kind of impact on me in my career. And you don't forget those people because, like you say, that single moment when you made it into the academy was the moment when you went, oh, hold on, maybe I can actually do this.
Yeah, completely. I completely agree. And I think it's also, I think Hartbury is such an interesting place because I went there and I never experienced anything like it. I think most 14, 15-year-old girls experience this. There's a lot of peer pressure, a lot of challenges you can have as you're growing up. I felt a huge intense pressure to fit in, and I really chameleoned myself and changed who I was in order to fit in a way that actually didn't, and this was at my old school, didn't fit well with me. And I was very uncomfortable. I struggled a lot with food. I struggled a lot with body image and who I was becoming because I was so stressed by feeling like I had to conform to being someone I wasn't in order to fit in. And that is something that it really was like I just had I don't know, like a complete release when I went to Hartbury because there's none of that. Or at least I never had any of that. Because I remember being so stressed about stupid things before I went to Hartbury, like, oh God, is my jumper cool enough? Is my hair not straight enough? Am I wearing the right makeup? Do I look the right way? God, I'm a bit tall. Oh no, I like running fast, therefore I get sweaty, and oh my God, I get red-faced. That's awful. Such stupid things looking back at it now. I mean, I can laugh at it, but they really were quite stressful because you could get bullied about that at the time. Whereas you go to Hartbury and everyone's just like, wonderful, you're good at sport. Great, that's what we care about. And there's never, you're really judged on I guess, the more value-based metrics, which are really conducive to becoming a great person. And I think that's something that's so important there because you don't have any of the uncomfortable ancillary pressures. It's just truly, we're all here trying to be really excellent at what we do. And that bleeds into everything else. And there's such an incredible support from your peers, from your lecturers, from your coaches. And it's amazing. I would love for every young girl to go through that, truly.
I completely agree. I think as a mum, that's all you want for your children is to go and for them to be happy and feel supported. And I mean, for Toby, it was just the most incredible experience. The camaraderie that goes along with any kind of sport, team sport particularly, although rowing's, I mean, can be team, can be individual, I know.
Yeah.
But yeah, we never experienced any of that. And I do think in those years, particularly at college rather than university, it's so important. And I must admit, whenever I've spoken to people and they've said, how's Toby getting on? Is he enjoying? I mean, he's finished now, obviously, but I've said he's just living his best life. He's just in a place where everybody thinks the same as him. Everybody wants to progress. Everybody's dedicated. They're there for a reason because of where it is and because you've got to go there because you want to be there, haven't you? It's a passion thing.
Yeah,
Um,
completely.
And so it creates this mindset. And I must admit, when I was writing my questions, I was going to say to you, what does your mum put on your cereal? You and your sister, like, what do you think it was about perhaps your upbringing or the way that you were spoken to that gave you this mindset that allowed you to be so determined? What do you think that's nurture or do you think it's just in you?
It's such a great question. And it's actually quite funny because, and it comes into what you're just saying about you have to want to be there and you have to be passionate. So my mum, bless her, there's some nature in that my mum is extremely tough and resilient and just like of course she's my mum. I love her to pieces. She is the most wonderful human being who will prioritize success and pushing herself no matter what. She's incredible. But she wanted me to be a violinist. She wanted me to be an artist. She loved that I used to be very musical. She loved that I sang, I played violin, and she really wanted me to just do that. And then the same for my sister, actually. My sister started out playing the cello and singing. And then my mum kind of realized with a bit of horror probably that that wasn't going to be on the cards. My mum was very musical. She realized she was not going to be going to orchestra practice anymore and hearing us. And she, bless her, the whole time, she'd come to races and see us racing and go, "It looks really, really horrible and unpleasant. Are you sure you want to be putting yourself through this? I know how hard it is. I see how hard you're working. I see how distraught you get. You'll ring me in floods of tears because you're concerned about how you're performing. You're terrified about a test, a piece. Are you sure you want to be putting yourself through this? This is horrible. This is absolutely horrible. Why would you want to be doing this? You seem exhausted. You're destroying yourself day in, day out. Are you okay?" And I truly think the reason Tilda and I were so good at sport, and even not just in sport, in our lives as well, because we're so bloody minded and determined and keen to push ourselves at all opportunity, it's because my mum and my dad, when he was alive, they just were really kind of like, we want you to try as hard as you can and be happy and be yourselves and be ready to just take on whatever you want to take on, whatever that looks like. Fine. My mum maybe would have preferred it was music, but they just supported us and they were just there for us, driving us to practice, but they never, ever, ever pushed me in a way that was them being selfish. It was always just, Charlotte loves this and she wants to be good. Same for Tilda. And I can't wait to have kids, but that's something for me that was so, so key in terms of how I grew up racing and training, because it was always on me. Every single time I pushed myself, every single time I won or lost or got cross or anything, anytime I questioned my sporting ability, it was just my decision. And I think that means you can really throw yourself into it because it's you and it's you wanting to do it.
I completely agree. It's so interesting to talk to you about it because it's the power of choice, isn't it?
100%.
It was never something that you felt you had to do. It was something you wanted. And you just had all the support that you needed to make that happen. And my nieces followed me into the musical theatre industry, both of them. And I remember having that exact conversation. Are you sure you want to do this? It's really hard. It's really hard. You will spend years, you'll work really hard, you'll get one job, and then the next you'll be back doing something else. Are you sure? And they were like, yes. And they've both been incredibly successful, more successful than I was because I had my children young. And I'm so proud of them. But they've had that same kind of support. But I do think it's about choice. It's so interesting. And I don't mean silly choices like, what would you want for tea or whatever? But it would be those days when you got home from school and you went, I'm so tired. I don't think I can do it. And instead of your mum going, you have to go, she would go, okay, well, it's up to you.
Yeah.
Right? It's up to you. If you're too tired, you don't have to go. It's fine. It's cool. And you're like, no, I really should. I really should. And so it's the practice of choosing, of choosing to want to succeed, I suppose.
Completely.
I've never thought about it like that before, actually.
It's so true. And I think also the other thing, particularly the bulk of my sporting career crossed over with and directly conflicted when most of my peers would be doing different things that you can't do if you're doing sport, like gap years, going out all the time, having weekends, having more than 2 weeks off per year, flexibility, able to just, if they want to, go to bed a bit later. I didn't have any of that. And I'd miss parties, I'd miss events, I'd miss family gatherings. And I used to get a lot of questions around, oh, you must have sacrificed so much. And I was always really confused by that question because I'm not sacrificing anything. If I'm sacrificing something, that means I'm doing it wrong. What I'm doing is making a series of very considered and thoroughly happy choices. I'm just making choices. I've decided that I want to be the best in the world or as close to that as I can get. And I love what I'm doing. So I will gladly make that choice. And I see it as I'm never sacrificing anything because if I'm thinking, and this is actually where I got to when I decided to stop cycling, I did start to feel like I was sacrificing time with loved ones, my career, my family. And I was like, you know what? Well, if I'm starting to feel like I'm sacrificing, then I need to start having these questions and these thoughts and have these conversations with myself because then I'm doing it for the wrong reasons. But if it's just choice, there's no sacrifice. You're doing it gladly and you're absolutely loving it. And I think that's something where, because it comes from within you and you've really decided that you want to do it, it's just every single day you're doing what you've really set out to do because you've chosen to.
Exactly. And it's the difference between a vocation and an occupation, isn't it?
Yeah, completely.
And I think that's the bit that people sometimes don't understand, is that when it's a vocation, it's something you feel so passionately about that it's almost within you. It feels like the most natural thing. And I completely resonate with the missing out. When you're in the theatre, you're working when everybody else is playing. You're 8 shows a week, you're rehearsing in the daytimes. You can't just rock up to somebody's wedding on a Saturday afternoon when there's a matinee. You miss it. I missed a lot of things like that.
Yeah.
But it's like you say, it's a choice. So after Hartpury, what happened next?
So I went on to I read English at uni, actually. I went on to go to University of London. Quite honestly, actually, it was quite a funny one, because I turned up first week of training. I was like, oh, okay, I'm now at university. God, this training program's going to be so hard. And actually, Hartpury was harder. I remember being like, oh, okay, interesting. I need to do more training now. But it was quite different. But I found the transition from Hartpury to uni so easy, because I'd already done all of that stuff. I lived in halls, cooked for myself, trained all the time, done all my lectures around my training. I was like, oh, cool. It's just Hartpury again, but with a degree and doing a subject that I just love. I get to read books all the time. Wonderful. But so I moved on to uni. And then at the time I moved up through the senior team and started doing sport a lot more seriously. And it was funny, because when I was at Hartpury, I guess maybe I still didn't necessarily think I could go to the Olympics or be an Olympian. I didn't grow up thinking, oh yeah, I must be an Olympian. I was like, okay, I'm just following this path. I seem pretty good at it. I'm just going to keep continuing through. And I think really during from my first or second year at uni, when I started racing at the under-23s, picking up a few medals, I was like, oh, okay, I seem to be quite good at this, despite being, you're not in person with me, but I'm actually quite small, and that's not very good for being a rower. You need to. I remember when I first turned up to the training center, they handed me a sheet of metrics of like, this is what you need to. These are the targets for being a gold medal athlete on the senior team. And there's very reasonable things there, like the amount of weight you can lift in the gym, the scores you can pull in the ergo, the times you can go on the water. But they also include like height, weight, and arm span. And I just looked at those metrics and I was like, well, I guess I can just eat loads of pies if you want. I can increase my weight, but I really can't grow. That's happening. So I think it was only as I started to be able to directly compare myself to my sister, who was in the team at the time when I was at university, and a few more of my peers, that I realized, actually, okay, well, it does seem like I have quite a good shot at fully going into the senior team as a full-time athlete and also going to the Olympics. So I really started to shift all of my mindset around, okay, what do I need to do? How do I need to put myself in the best position to join the senior team when I graduate, which I did. And yeah, that was quite the experience. There's nothing really quite like it. You go from, when I was at uni, I was getting up and training at 5 a.m, cycling 30K to go to uni, coming back, working a job, then doing a session in the evening, and then finishing up with my lectures. And I remember just going full time and being like, wow, this is my job. I do nothing but train. This is incredible. It's really quite, and I feel so privileged that because of the setup, I was able to do that. It's really quite something. Although I must say, it also is quite strange. I'm someone who loves thinking and doing a lot of things. So actually also going full time and only thinking about sport 24/7, I actually found that quite hard, because I was like getting a bit itchy for wanting to do other things around it and use my brain a bit more. So that was something I definitely navigated. But yes, but then I was able to go to the Tokyo qualifying regatta, qualified the boat for the Olympics. And I remember it was so surreal. Just suddenly, because I think I never really, and truly up until really very recently, I never really thought I'm a great athlete. I was just like, well, somehow I fluked it. Somehow I've just been able to be in the right place at the right time. I remember crossing the line for the Olympic qualifiers and being like, I can't wrap my head around this still. Like, how have I qualified for the Olympics? What does that even mean? Does that mean the standard of going to the Olympics isn't very good if I've done it? And I think just that was, all of that was so hard to wrestle with. And then going to the games as well, it was really quite an experience to wrap my head around, because I still felt so much like a kid. You know, you're in the Olympic Village and you've got these incredible athletes strolling around past you. And your brain has to do this really strange little shift of, this is me. I'm in this arena. This is wild. And you'll just be having dinner directly opposite someone who's won multiple Olympics, and they're just there having their dinner with you and talking nonsense. And I don't think you can ever really, I
You know
feel
what?
so grateful I got to do that. It was wild.
Yeah. But it's that horrible word, lucky, isn't it?
I
It's that
know.
horrible word. I hate it, genuinely, because people go, you're so lucky that you got to go to Hartpury, aren't you? You're so lucky that you went to that university with that team, and you're so lucky. And it's like, no, I'm not
I
lucky.
know.
It was
I
a
know.
choice. I made a choice. And then not only did I make a choice, but I worked really, really, really hard to make that happen. But we constantly fed this narrative by the people around us, and they very well meaning. It's not always said in a bad way. It's just they go, oh my goodness, you're so lucky. You're so lucky to go to the Olympics. Well, I'm not lucky. No, no. And it's a really interesting one, because unfortunately, subconsciously, it feeds into this, well, I should be beyond grateful, rather than, which of course we are, of course we're very grateful, attitude of gratitude and all that jazz. But also, I've bloody deserved this. I've worked really hard. I bet you chose your university because of the team, didn't you?
Yeah.
Of course you did, because you knew what you were doing. It was a very considered, measured choice. And as was going to Hartpury, as was everything else, as was dedicating your time in those moments to training at 5 in the morning, the whole thing. It's all it's all a choice. That's not lucky. That's sheer determination and bloody mindedness, as you said earlier, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. It's a really funny one for me. And I think actually it's something that I've spoken to a lot of women from sport, but also business as well, and all incredible women. And I think it's something also around, it is truly very hard to not feel like an imposter. And I think that's something that I am always going to struggle with. I think it's something I'm permanently working on, because I think particularly if you're someone who tries so hard and has such a deep desire to be good and doesn't want to settle, then when you achieve those things, the automatic knee-jerk thing is, oh, well, it can't have been that hard because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to do it. And I don't know how I did this, but somehow I have. And maybe I'm not good enough. I don't know. But it's that constant self-doubt that somehow you're in the space, or you have the role, or you have the job. And I think that's actually something that a lot of women find very hard and don't talk about enough, because most of us are thinking the same thing.
Agreed.
We just
And
don't say it.
also, we're actively discouraged from having any sort of ego. And actually, that's really unfair, because for men, it's completely different. And, I'm not going to start bashing men's versus women. That's not what it's about. But boys are brought up differently to girls. Girls have to be humble. They have to be polite. They have to be ladylike. They have to be quiet. They're not allowed to show off or be seen to be pushing themselves forward. Boys, it's like, show them who you are, be a man, actively encouraged this alpha mentality. Whereas when you get a woman who is like that, who is prepared to put herself forward, and I don't mean ego in a detrimental way, but there is something to be said for knowing your worth and knowing that you're good at something and being able to stand on your own 2 feet and go, yes, I'm good at this. You need to put me forward for it, which is interestingly what you did with your coach at Hartpury. You didn't let him, off on that thing. And I do think fundamentally women and men are conditioned differently to put themselves forward in a different way. And it's bound to translate then, isn't it, into
100%.
our careers and our lifestyles and everything else.
Yeah,
And
I completely agree.
I do perhaps think times have changed a little bit. I do think things are a little bit more equal, but unfortunately those stereotypes are still there, aren't they?
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
So in 2017, you stepped up as a late sub, didn't you, in the
Oh my gosh.
World Championship?
Yeah.
Tell me about that. What? So it was finished uni. You said you joined the under-23s, and you were at the World Championships.
Yes, spot on. So actually this one was just before. So my under-23s crossed over with my degree. And so I was still finishing up. So in rowing, you trial throughout the year and then you're selected, I want to say June time-ish for your boat that you'll go and represent the country in. So in rowing, this is now a little bit niche, but worthwhile to contextualize it. There's two different disciplines. You have sweep and sculling. Most simply put, sweep you have one oar, sculling you have two. I loved sculling. I grew up as a sculler. That's what you do at Hartpury. It also suits someone who's a little bit smaller. Sweep, you need to be long-levered, big, strong girl. But when you're at university, you primarily sweep. And I did this very reluctantly, but I did it. And then the trouble is, because I was doing it throughout the year, I ended up accidentally being quite good at it. And so I got selected in the sweep category, which it's a funny one where I'm like, oh, I'm grumpy about being selected as a sweeper. Oh no, poor me. But I really wanted to be a sculler. Anyway, so I was at the World Championships racing in a sweep boat in the 8. And then one of the girls in the quad, so sculling, fell sick before the final. And we had maybe, I don't know, I think she was pulled from the boat about 4 hours or so before the final of the World Champs. And because as a junior sculled, I'd come third at World Champs as a junior as a sculler, and then won Henley Royal Regatta a couple of times as a sculler. The coaches knew I could scull, and there was no one that was a good substitute at the time that was ready to jump in. And so the head of the under-23 squad came and knocked on the hotel door and was like, Charlotte, one of the girls in the quad is unable to race. She's fallen sick. Can you jump in? And it was really as casual as that. I did not find it as casual as that. I remember I was so terrified. And I'm even feeling it now. I felt so nauseous. I felt so sick. I was just sweaty. I think I even just sat on the floor and I was like, I cannot do this. I am going to let everyone down. This is a huge event. There's a medal on the line here. I might not remember how to scull well. I haven't done it all year. I could be absolutely terrible. I might just completely embarrass myself. What will I do? And I remember him, he was lovely. I remember him so clearly in this moment. He just was like, that's fine. You don't have to do it. And it comes back to the choice again. Because he was like, it's up to you. You choose. And I just remember being like, there is no way I can move past this moment knowing and thinking, well, what if I had said yes and I had done well, but because I was scared, I said no. And I hate acting out of fear. So I always try to not do that. And so I said yes. And I remember we jumped in, we went for a little quick row before the race. And one of my very dear friends was in the boat as well. And I remember she was so sweet. She was behind me. She's like, it feels amazing. It feels great. And I remember thinking, Anna, I can tell you right now, this boat feels terrible. It sucks. It is not feeling good. But managed to get through the pre-row. Then we're on the start line. We go off. And I was so terrified of letting the other girls down that I tried so hard. I remember coming through halfway or so in the race and I literally couldn't see because I was trying so hard. And actually at this point, I'm less concerned about letting others down in that I won't be good enough. I just actually don't know how I'm going to get to the finish line. But somehow did. And we won the World Champs, which was incredible. I'd got a silver beforehand, but this was my first World Championship title, which was obviously amazing. And that was really the race that I'm so glad I said yes to, because that race, after that race, then the head of the under-23s came up to me and was like, well, guess you've proven that you can be a sculler now. And that was really, from that point onwards, you know, the year after I raced with actually the close friend from the same boat, we raced in the doubles category the following year. We broke the world record in that category. We won the world champs, and then we were selected to go and race in the senior category. So that really just having the choice and saying yes and not being scared. Well, being scared, but being up for taking on the challenge.
Being scared, but doing it anyway.
Yeah, 100%. I think scaring yourself and getting through it is within reason, a great thing to do. Because you have so many things that you can achieve and do by just being a little bit scared and just being like, okay, I'm just going to try. What's the worst? Really, what is the worst? The upside is huge. What's the worst that could happen? But God, I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified.
I love the reframe, which is fear is just expansion.
I love
fear. Fear is growth. If you're a bit scared, that means you're just pushing yourself outside your comfort zone. And your comfort zone is quite a boring place to be. No one wants to sit in their comfort zone all the time. All fear is just that bit of growth and expansion that helps you grow. And and maybe that's the thing, because I always wanted growth. I always wanted to be better. I cared. It mattered to me. It's interesting, isn't it, how you were able to push yourself through that moment. And in some respects, because of the fear of not doing it, I can either push myself through this or I can regret it. I can regret not doing it and being afraid of that moment. Yeah. Was your sister there when you won that title?
No, she wasn't, but my mum was.
Oh.
So we raced together at Tokyo. I should say that. We raced together in the Olympic boat. But because she was 2 years older than me, she was always slightly ahead in the age category. And so it was only when I actually came up to the senior team that we started training and racing together and being in a boat all the time.
But what was that like, racing together? Did you hit each other with your oars?
So here's the funny thing. So I think a lot of people are like, oh, that must be very intense. But actually, the only real regret I have about rowing is that I wasn't able to race more with my sister, because I love her to pieces. She is the most too supportive sometimes. She needs to prioritize herself. She is the most supportive and loving and caring person on the planet. And so every single time I'd race with her, it was just such a privilege to have someone who knew me, all my good things, my bad things, my fears, my weaknesses, know me so well and know exactly what to say to me at exactly the right moment. And she would always be there trying to get the best out of me, trying to help me, trying to guide me. Fine. Sometimes, yes, we'd argue, but because of the way we have a relationship, we will just, like, we still do it now. I'll ring her up and say, Matilda, I'm really cross at you. You're really annoying me. Blah, blah, blah. And she'll go, you're really annoying me as well. But because we just have this very close bond and we can just be so open and we know each other so well, it's just the best thing in the world. I loved racing with Tilda. It was incredible. And I just think you have this, like, just I've never been closer with her than when I was training full time with her and racing with her. Because even I can look at the back of her head and know how she's feeling. And the same with me. And you're there for each other all the time. And I think that is so special to go through with someone that you're so massively in love with and such a huge fan of. I love my sister, as you can tell.
Yeah, absolutely. Quite right. And the other part of my work that I do is all about energy. And for me, I think that energy is that's your connection. You're connected not only biologically, but because you're just intertwined in each other's auras or whatever you want to call it, your energetic fields are connected. So you would have been so in sync in those moments, you know. Me and my sister are the same. We've argued over the years, but we are connected, and she knows what I'm thinking and I know what she's thinking. You know, sisters have that connection, don't they? So I can only imagine how wonderful that must have been for you both. Like, So obviously after that, this springboarded your career and you went off to Tokyo, and I mean, wow, what an incredible experience. So, and you were in training camp, obviously. Talk to me about that. And you came 7th in the end, didn't you?
Yes. So Tokyo was a funny one because we ended up, the games were postponed a year because of COVID.
Yeah.
And so we were a very young crew. We didn't have much racing experience. I think we'd done one race together before the games, which is crazy. That's not enough race prep at all. And actually, we'd all trained pretty well during COVID. In my flat, there were 4 of us in a 2-bed flat, and we were all training full time. So you'd wake up in the morning, and we had an ergo in our living room and a weights rack in our living room. You'd wake up in the morning and you'd hear someone on the ergo, and then you'd go and have your breakfast. You'd jump on when they'd finished. Someone else would jump on when you'd stop. And basically, the house was just like a permanent noise of exercise. It's quite bizarre, but got through that quite well. And then we raced at the Europeans a couple months before the games, and we did really well. We came second, so picked up a silver. And that I actually think was a bit unfortunate because of being such a young crew, and we'd never gone through having hard racing together and being disappointed with the result. We went into the games on a real high, and I think probably we could have done with a couple more races of just dropping our shopping, having a bad result, and being like, okay, how do we make this better? What do we need to fix? How do we all gel when we've had a rubbish result? Because rowing's a funny one. You train all year by yourself, and then you're plunked into a boat together, and you will just have to get on and be a team. And you do need a bit of time to mesh and get used to that. So I would have loved a little bit more racing prep so we could gel before we went to the games. Because I do think it would have been good to have a really bad result beforehand, to know how we needed to, because our heat didn't go quite to plan. And that kind of just threw us off kilter a little bit. I mean, still, coming 7th at Olympic Games, getting to Olympic Games is incredible. Coming 7th at the Olympic Games, amazing. Like, phenomenal. I can't be too disappointed about it, but I know we could have done slightly better had we had a bit more time to prep. And so I would have loved that. But do I regret anything about it? No, not really. It was still such an amazing experience. And I've kept so much wonderful paraphernalia. This is not something I expected, but you'll get these beautiful hand-drawn cards from the children in the area. And they'll write you such wonderful messages. And you realize it's so much more than just little Charlotte going and racing and being very obsessed and thoughtful about how she's racing. It's actually, there are small children and young girls watching this across the world, and they may be inspired to go and do something similar because of what you've done and what it means to them. And you realize the ripple effect is quite something. So yes, so it was an incredible experience. And also growing up, never thinking that was going to be my path, getting to experience that. I mean, wow. It's not necessarily lucky, but not many people get to go and experience that. And it's an amazing experience. I wish everyone could actually go and experience it, because it is a little moment in time that is kind of insane. The world stops. You're just in this massive bubble with the fittest, fastest, strongest, most impressive humans in the world.
And that's where you have to give yourself the credit that you weren't lucky. You worked bloody hard to get there, and you were one of those people. And I know it's hard, that, because the imposter syndrome in you goes, oh, I slid in by the skin of my teeth. But it's not true, is it?
No.
7th in the world in that moment, actually.
Yeah.
And I find it fascinating that you needed to fail to succeed.
Absolutely.
And again, that's something we don't talk about. We don't talk about the success of failure and what the failure teaches us, and how many times you get knocked down, the injuries, and then the determination that is required off the back of that to then bounce back.
I completely agree. I think failing is one of the best things people can do. And this is why I'm always so ready and willing to be the most open, I guess now, ex-athlete possible, and be so truthful about how many times I've failed, how often I've been absolutely rubbish, how many times I've had to redo things, how when I started I was absolutely pants. It's not like I was just gifted with everything. I think it's so unfortunate that a lot of people do look up to people who have, got to a point where they're really good, and they just go, oh, well, I could never do that. That's not true at all. I was rubbish. I'm often rubbish in a lot of things I do. But if you just try and give it a go and try and do what the best ability you have at that thing, you might actually be quite good at it. And I wish more people were able to do that, because it's really, that is the secret sauce, really. It's not that you just get born and you're allocated, oh, you're going to be a film star, you're going to be a singer, you're going to be an incredible dancer, you're going to be a politician. No, these people just try.
Yeah. One of my questions I've got written here is, what do people get wrong about what it actually takes to be an Olympian? And maybe that's the answer. The answer is that they assume that you're naturally good, that you haven't had to put in the graft.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, how would you answer that question?
It's such a good question. And I mean, look, don't get me wrong. I think you need to be weird and special in a particular way. But I think a lot of people have this idea that you are just a physical specimen and you're born into this body that is destined to be great at sport. And I think actually if people saw really what it's like being an athlete, it's actually just really unglamorous and just permanently sweating and being very tired and being very, very, very stressed, and a lot of the time being very, very unhappy. It's not glamorous. It's not a cruisy, lovely experience. Sometimes it is. And like, yes, some of the experiences are wonderful and you get to go on training camp and it's amazing, but it's really bloody hard. It's just day in, day out. And because you can't switch off. Right now, okay, fine. I'm working extremely hard, but I go home and I can stay up till 12 and have that extra hour chatting to my partner or go and see friends for dinner. And I might be a bit more tired the next day, but it's not going to potentially ruin a week of training and therefore the knock-on effect. You can switch off in normal life. You can never switch off if you're an athlete properly, because you always know there's a payoff of, well, okay, if I do this thing, which might be nice for me right now, it could have a knock-on effect and therefore it could be detrimental to my performance. So it's a 24/7 job. You don't stop.
It's the physical and mental exhaustion of the whole thing, is the whole package, isn't it? I remember going to college when I was 18, moving to London from Yorkshire. I mean, it was my dream, so it was what I wanted. But my college was on 5 floors and we weren't allowed to use the lift. So it was all stairs.
Yep.
And I trained every night. I danced from being 4 years old or whatever. But going to training at 8:30 till 6 o'clock at night every day, when all your friends are at uni doing 11 hours a week in lectures and then going out on the piss the rest of the time. And I'm like, I have to be in ballet at 8:30, 5 days a week. Otherwise, you're not allowed to do any other classes. And I remember at the end of my first week, speaking to my mum on the phone, and she's going, how's it? Is it lovely? And I remember crying and going, I can't walk up the stairs. And they won't let us use the lift. Oh, it's off. Because my legs were just shredded. Like I was in bits, like physically. And I loved every second of it. But I was also broken. Just physically, mentally, the whole thing. Yeah, it was intense. I could barely walk. Yeah. Just broken woman. Yeah. But at the same time, she was going, oh dear, do you need to come out? I was like, I love it.
And your mum's probably there like, oh God.
Yeah. And I'd ring her, I'm walking home through King's Cross on an evening, and she'd be like, no, it's been horrible. No, I'm walking through King's Cross and prostitutes somewhere. She'd be like, oh my God, you're going to die. She told me years later that those were the worst calls for her when I was away, and they were 250 miles away, and I'd ring her in tears after those kind of days. And I'm sure your mum got those calls from you too, right?
All the time. And it's so funny, actually, when you were saying this, I was just instantly thrown back to it, because I spoke with my mum about this maybe last year or so. And I actually felt so bad because I would always ring her when I just needed to offload and just be super emotional, because part of being an athlete as well is just keeping your shit together at all times.
Yeah.
And you can't really allow yourself to be really open and vulnerable, because it's not always appropriate, and you can't do it to your teammates, you can't do it to your coaches. Maybe you can do it to the physios, but really I would just pick up my mum and just be like, I'm so unhappy, and I'd ring her and I'd cry and I'd cry. And because the problem with sport as well is, like, mentally, it's not very healthy. You're permanently telling yourself you're not good enough. You're permanently being told you're not good enough. and you're constantly exhausted and you're always just like a little bit depressed and anxious. Also, okay, to caveat that, not all the time, but a lot of it is that. And I'd pick up the phone and offload this to my mum, and then I'd be like, okay, now I'm at uni, bye, and hang up. And then and then just my day would go on. It'd probably get better because I'd see my uni friends, I'd talk to people, I'd move on with my day, I'd get immersed in reading and writing, and I'd have a session, I'd do well in the session, I'd be happy. And I wouldn't really talk to her until like a week later. She'd be like, are you okay? I've been so worried. I'm like, why are you worried? And she's like, my heart, you were in pieces. Like, what? And I was like, oh yeah, no, I had a crappy day, but I'm actually fine. And she was like, that was the hardest thing. Because as a mum, you get your child in just like peace and you're like, I can't do anything. And I also know that she's not going to stop. I can't drive down there and pull her away from training because she'll also go mad at me and be like, why are you interfering? This is my life. What are you talking about? And my mum would get so nervous for me racing. And I would get very nervous as well. But I'd get to have the release because I'd race. And
Yeah.
she would just be there, a bundle of nerves, because she also, bless her, doesn't really understand rowing still to this day. And she'd be like, it just looked so stressful. And I was like, no, it was fine. It was in control. She's like, I'm so nervous still. I feel so sick. And I'm like, oh God, yeah, because you haven't had that release. You don't get that. You just had a bundle of cortisol and nerves the rest of the day.
Our poor parents.
I know.
So you mentioned right at the beginning of our chat about body image and about how obviously it's, as a woman, it's tough, right? What if we go deeper into that? What is the truth about body image for female athletes? Because your body's your tool, isn't it?
Yeah.
How does that manifest?
Yeah. Look, I'm very happy to be very open about this, and I can't talk for other women. I know there are women who are fantastic athletes who are very happy and very comfortable with their bodies and they've never had any problems, and I'm absolutely not talking for them in this part. But I think for me personally, it was really interesting because I came into sport. Yes, I was copying what Tilda was doing, but also sport for me was actually the thing that really helped me out of having an eating disorder. And at the time when I'd started rowing, I was struggling a lot with food. I'd actually been removed for school for like 2 weeks or so by my parents because I just wasn't eating. I was really, really struggling. I was very thin, and sport changed that for me because, as you said, it is your tool. It is the thing that you have. It is really kind of, you have to fuel it so you can perform. And my coach, when I was at school, sat me down when I'd started rowing, this before Hartbury, and my coach was like, well, you can only come to practice if you've had your lunch. And if you've had your lunch, you can come to practice. And that was kind of the start for me of being healthier with my body and being able to kind of just start having that progression of, okay, food is not terrifying. It is not something I have to avoid. It's something I need to do because I've started to enjoy this other thing. And I can I can permit myself to have my lunch because I'm only doing it because I'm training. And then that kind of made it okay for me. And then from that point onwards, particularly going to Hartbury, was incredible because you're an athlete, you're eating, so you're training, you're eating, so you're training. And you have to eat so you can train. And then you realize that I'm getting fitter and stronger. And actually, I'm just being muscly and strong. So I eat. And so that was a lot healthier for me. Then I think I was in a great place with it. And then actually, I found it quite hard when I started getting like better at rowing because you just get photographed more and you get more public and you get seen more. And rowing clothing does not leave anything to the imagination. It's very, very like tiny outfit, pretty much skin tight. And I remember just being a little bit more conscious of it, a little bit more concerned. And it's because I think also it coincided with a little bit more social media, but it's so tough because the guys all kind of joke around it. And I do understand some guys, they do have more concerns about food, but they haven't grown up in the same way that a lot of girls have. And so for a lot of girls, you're having this conflict of like, I'm trying to be a really strong, wonderful athlete. And on the other hand, I don't look super skinny in this photo. And I remember it got maybe a little bit, unbeknownst to me, it got a bit worse. And I remember actually when we won the silver medal at the European Championships, there was a photo of me on the podium and I was like, oh, I think I can see some cellulite on my leg. I can't post this photo on Instagram. And in that moment, I was like, Charlotte, what the bloody hell are you doing? You've just won your first senior medal and you are here being like, oh, I shouldn't post that. And I remember that was such a clear moment to me being like, this is ridiculous. You actually need to get help with it. You need to properly fix this, because if you're not open about, and if you're trying to present this perfect image of yourself, how many younger girls are there going to be out there thinking, well, Charlotte just looks incredible. She never looks like anything but skinny. And even what is skinny? But therefore, I need to eat less. I need to do that. And that for me was like, this is ridiculous. And that really kicked off that, like, I want to be more vocal about it. I want to be more around your body is you. It's what you're born with. It's what makes you great. If you don't fuel, if you don't look after yourself, you're hurting yourself. You are the thing, that you are precious. You have to treasure it. You have to nurture yourself. And I think it's never going to be perfect in sport, but wherever possible, I'm so keen to be open about how I've struggled with it, so that there aren't girls and women out there, regardless of level of activity, that are looking at me going, oh, I bet she's never struggled with food. I bet she's never been concerned about her body image. Because you have to be open about it if you're comfortable.
Because I can imagine, especially with a sport like rowing, you tend to build muscles in places that, like shoulders, and
Yeah.
and then there's a battle, isn't there, between feminine and skinny. There's this, I want to look feminine, but then, you're gonna build muscles in places that make you look
Yeah.
bulky, and then
Totally.
what do you do? I know in ballet particularly, that's a massive problem.
Yeah.
It's well documented within the dance industry, obviously, but it's really tough. Thank you for sharing. And how was that once you came out of sport? Did that follow you, or did you fix it? What happened?
Yeah, good question. It's something that was really interesting, because I had to revisit it. And I chatted to my therapist no end about this, because you go from, okay, well, I'm eating in this very structured way. And with cycling, it was hard again, because for cycling, you have to be power to weight. It's the important metric. So I did have to start looking more at calories. And I hated that, because on the one hand, you're like, oh, I'm doing it sensibly. But realistically, if you're someone who's had a problem with food before, if you start calorie counting, it's not going to be helpful. I have a wonderful partner. He knows me inside out and is able to be like, Charlotte, weighing a teaspoon of honey? Are you aware that even just like the way we calculate calorie burning in humans isn't an accurate enough representation? So why are you measuring a teaspoon of honey? And I was like, yep, okay, good. So, I have wonderful people around me. I'm so lucky to have that. But coming out of sport was really hard and fully stopping sport, because your appetite changes, but also you no longer need to fuel yourself to be an athlete. So I could be like, I'm not really hungry. I guess I'll just have, I don't know, some snacks on the way home if I'm finishing work late. And then you're just like, well, I'm actually just not fueling myself to be well. And it just took a bit of time for me to be like, well, just because I'm not an athlete anymore, fine, I'm running, I'm very active, but just because I'm not an athlete anymore, that doesn't mean I shouldn't fuel myself like an athlete still. Like, okay, maybe I'm not eating gazillions of amounts of food every day, but I still need to have a wonderful, balanced, healthy diet, because that's what makes me feel great. That's what makes me feel good. That makes me energized. That makes me excited and happy and positive. If I don't eat enough, I feel anxious. I feel stressed. I feel sluggish. I'm not good. I'm not the best version of me. So it really did take a bit of time, and your body changes. I become less muscular. I become different. I remember my lovely boyfriend passing me a shoulder and being like, oh, you need to go and do some weights again. You've got too small. So I think there's parts of you that change, and you readjust, but you kind of have a lovely moment to relearn who you are and re-meet the body that I had before I was a full-time athlete, and figure out what that's like. And I now actually feel the most connected to myself and my body, which is,
That's good.
I love that.
And there is also something about when you started rowing, you were a child, and
Yep.
your body, even as a teenager and in your 20s, is not the body of a woman. It's not the body that is you're going to have in your late 20s into your 30s into your 40s. And I have to hold my hands up and say I struggle with that.
Yeah, it's hard.
Because I look in the mirror and go, oh, that's not what I want to see. I used to be ripped. What is this? What is this perimenopausal howl? Like,
Oh, guys.
it's horrendous. And I struggle with that, genuinely.
Hard, really
Especially
hard.
once you've had kids and your body changes. You mentioned you retired from after Tokyo and you had your brief little stint with cycling and that was all wonderful. And then obviously you've had this kind of moment of actually, I don't think I'm very happy anymore. I'm ready to live my life rather than be
Yeah.
dedicated to a vocation. And so what happened next there? What was that transition like?
Yeah. So I also should caveat this in that like I I have no idea. I look back and I'm like, I have no idea how I did this. But when I actually stopped rowing, I did start a professional career as well alongside cycling. So I actually went into finance at the same time. I went into BlackRock. I have absolutely no how like that's probably the reason that then after doing it for 2 years, I was like, I'm gonna die. I'm so tired. But God, that was my first job. Great job to have. Taught me a huge amount. I have to say, the change from going, because, cycling aside, going from rowing as my full-time job to BlackRock being my full-time job, what a change. I remember I had my first day and I rung my boyfriend on the way home. He was like, how was it? How was your day? And I cried and I was like, I hate it. I absolutely hate it. And he was like, what do you mean? I was like, everyone is in this building. They know all these words that I don't know. They know all this stuff. They know how to do things. I feel so stupid. I don't know what I'm doing. Is this what work is? People just come in and do this? I'm not interested. I'm not excited by it. I don't get it. I don't feel good. And I it got better. I learned the words. I quickly learned all the acronyms. Well, that's not true. There are so many acronyms in that
I
place.
mean, it's
They took
ridiculous, isn't it?
It took a bit of time, but you adjust to it. But I really think it depends how you're wired. But for me, I have to do things that I love and that I'm passionate about and I feel deeply, deeply connected about. I'm the kind of person I go to sleep excited about what I get to do the next day with work. I love work being something that I love. And I found that a bit tricky when I went to BlackRock because it's a great place. You learn so much. You're pushed. You're with a group of people who are really, really competitive and driven. And I loved that. But I didn't feel really connected to what I was doing. So it took me a bit of time to kind of take all the learning from that and actually also just learn what real world work is. Because when you're doing sport, you're quite isolated from what the real world is and what actual jobs are and what that means. And so so I was there for 2.5 years. And then I realized I'm not cut out to be a tiny little cog in a massive corporation. No matter how wonderful that corporation is and how prestigious it is and how great it is and it looks great on a CV and cool, you're an impressive person. But I like being able to see directly my input and what I'm doing. And I want to really get very connected to what I'm doing. So I went on to work at a Swedish life sciences company for a year and a bit, and I was able to head up the growth and the strategy and the commercial. And that really kind of was my first step into, okay, I think I understand the type of stuff I want to be doing. I'm not at the time, I was like, not quite sure the subject is the right thing, but I know that I want to directly have impact into how the business is doing. And I want to be seeing my efforts bring reward to the business. I want to be directly impacting that. That is exciting for me. I love that. And I think that's the sport side of it. That's the element where you're like, I want to be feeling like I'm winning and I'm doing.
Yeah. It's a mindset, right? For
Yeah.
sure. And now obviously you've gone on to set up your own business, haven't you?
Yes.
I know we
Yes.
can't talk about it in too much detail because it's still top secret information, but so you've set up your own business. Are you with other people or just you? Yeah.
Yeah. So I can loosely talk about it as it's so clickbaity of me, but to be like, well, we haven't fully launched yet, so we're still being secret, but I can talk around it. But so yeah, so I coming back to me needing to be passionate about what I'm doing and really obsessed and in love with the work I'm doing. A bit dramatic, but the person that I am, I want to be living my life knowing that if I get hit by a bus in a couple of days' time, I won't be like, oh, I should have done all those things. So for me, it's really, I want to be spending my time doing stuff that fills me with so much joy. I've been doing this for we started when we incorporate 3 months ago or so. We've been working together. So I work with 2 other women, both incredible women. There's something so truly delightful in working with people who every single day you come in and you go, I need to level up again. I need to push harder because these 2 women are up here. And you keep doing this little
And you're stretching each other, aren't you? It's great.
fully. And at the same time covering off each other's blind spots, which is perfect. So as probably evident from my background with sport and being a female athlete, my deep passion is women and the experience of being a woman, and on top of that, women's health. Women's health sucks most of the time, to be perfectly frank. I don't think it's I don't think it's intentionally terrible. I don't think anyone in the world is sitting there thinking, oh, how can we make women's lives miserable? But because of the lack of research, because of the lack of data, because of the way we've set up medicine, technology, understanding, research, everything, we just don't know enough about women's bodies, which means we don't know enough about physiology, which means we don't know how women's bodies work. We don't have the best technology in place. We don't have any good systems or products that are actually built and designed for women. So we are coming together, talking about this very loosely, intentionally, which is so horrible of me, but we are really trying to approach the thing of there is nothing out there technology-wise. There is nothing that is built to help women understand their health in terms of who they are as a woman. So fully understanding their cycle, their hormones, their variability, everything that's going on in their body. There is nothing that does that for women. And there is nothing that covers women from right the way from puberty, fertility, menopause, through those whole life stages. There is nothing there that helps women manage and improve their health and well-being. And there are so many women who are tracking their health more and more, taking more tests, seeing really nonsense nutrition, exercise, medical information on TikTok. There is no product that does all of this for women in a really considered and scientifically correct manner. So our product is in this space, but we'll be launching later this year, which is so exciting. We're currently beta testing, which is amazing. So we're currently having real women test our product and give us feedback. And it's been so exciting. We've already had a woman come back and be like, I've never had anything like this. And it's that I'm like, yes.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, well, I wish you every success. That's amazing. And I do believe, and I talk about it a lot, that everything that I learned throughout my professional career, and which was relatively short actually in my life, really, in terms of my whole life, I had all of that resilience and the skills of definitely, I use them every day in everything that I do, right?
100%.
So if there is a young person sitting at home right now and they're listening to this conversation and they think they're not enough or they're not ready, or what would you say to them?
Oh my God. I would say have a moment, have a think about what makes you truly, truly happy, deeply happy, and what is that thing that you'll be doing, regardless of what your peers might think or say about you. Think about what that thing is and do it, because you will be so happy. And regardless of what other friends might say about you, if that's, you're really sweaty, why are you so red-faced all the time? Or why are you reading so many books and getting awards for reading books? And that is embarrassing. Do the thing that makes you so happy, because you will leave school, you'll go to university, you'll realize that no one cares about being weird when you're at university. Everyone's loved for being weird. And you will move forward and be so much happier than trying to pretend to be someone that you're not. And you will waste your time and life spending time thinking that you're trying to be someone else. It's a complete waste of time. Do what makes you happy and don't care about being embarrassed about it. I think that is, if I could change anything about being little, it would be that. Pre-rowing, just don't worry about being embarrassed. Do what makes you happy.
Everything's temporary, right?
Oh my God, yes. 100%.
Everything. Oh, well, Charlotte, listen, I think we could talk for hours and hours and hours and hours, but I am going to let you go. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for your time, your honesty, and for being here today. I'm so grateful. It's been a fabulous conversation.
Oh, it's been so nice to chat. I've loved it.
Thank you so much.